need perspective. You may not be excoriating the left brain, but certainly discounting it as if the left brain is going to be clunky and get in the way, which it does during that initial stage of playing around with nonverbal things, or any stage of playing around with nonverbal things. The other criticism is that the book offered me nothing for how to invent out of imagination. And if the new version, which, as I'm told, has another chapter in it called Drawing from Imagination, if that balances out my criticism, I am willing to submit. I have nothing against the author. In fact, I really enjoyed the second book. The second book was Drawing on the Artist Within, and that was on territory that was, to me, very fit, which is this business of exploring and playing and seeing things with a naive mind, getting a fresh view on things. And it was not, as Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain is, trying to essentially lobotomize art training. Now, I felt very uncomfortable saying all of this.
Why?
Because my peers and some of my students around me, when they ask about it, we have the conference. I've never done anything like this so that the whole world is at it. And I know that people love this book. And if it gives you confidence, I am glad that it gives you confidence. It's just that it came into my life when I really wanted help with how to draw like a comic book artist could, out of imagination. And I got nothing from it. And it was shortly thereafter that I discovered Robert Beverly Hale's book, and then that one was the one that led me in a direction where I'm going to actually get this stuff.
Yeah. So I didn't read the old version that you read.
But you've read the new version?
Not all the way through, but I've read a bunch of it. Enough to understand what you're talking about.
Okay, balance me out.
In the new version, she says that this book is specifically for beginners learning to draw from observation.
Okay.
So it's absolute beginners. People who have not drawn before, who don't understand how to think purely visually without, using symbols to draw. So the whole thing about lobotomizing the left side is in order to just get past the overuse of the left side in the beginning when people start drawing, is they don't use the right side at all. They're only using the left. So she teaches you how to balance it out by temporarily just completely ignoring the left side. Flip the image upside down, use only the right side. And I know the whole argument that it's left and right side is like proven false now. People argue with that. It's like, okay, whatever. You think of it as a metaphor then.
Exactly. Even if you show that both sides are involved in both processes, this kind of awareness that there are two modes has been around for thousands of years.
The modes are still, I think,
valid.
They're still valid. Don't take the title too literally. I think what she teaches is actually very useful for people who are absolute beginners learning to draw from observation. That's exactly what she says at the beginning, and I think it's a really good method. It's very incomplete. I don't think it's complete art training, but almost no book I have is. Some of my favorite books are anatomy books. They're not complete drawing manual. Like, I can't learn from how to draw from these anatomy books. So you have to specify what you're doing here, what this book is going to help you do, and then deliver just on that.
Okay.
It's not her responsibility to teach you how to draw comic books. She wasn't trying to do that at all. She was more from the fine art world, I think, of everyone just draws life from reality, from nature, and from a model, where it's actually a good thing to have a model come in and draw from the model. It's like applauded. Like, oh my God, you had a real model come in for that? That's her world, I think.
Yeah, and the comic book thing, I've had people jump on the comic book thing. Oh, that's all you care about is comic books. Yeah, you're just the lowbrow stuff. You're the high stuff. No, the thing is that the great masters of the past, the great painters and drawers of the past were trained in how to invent out of imagination, whether you call it comic books or not.
I think that is a very important part of training, but I wouldn't start with that. I would start by learning from nature first. Understand what you're seeing, and then see better in your head, and then figure out how to put it down on paper, or what you're seeing.
So what we're getting here is that Marshall really wanted a particular kind of tool, And then he was given a very different kind of tool, which is the one that he's been given over and over. And it's like, who's going to give me the one that I need? And
The one you wanted.
the one that I needed. I was completely dependent on photography.
It's the one
I couldn't
needed,
draw
I guess,
anything
to do
unless
what
I
you
took a
wanted to
picture
do.
of it and copied it. It was just amazing how
Okay.
bound I
Yeah.
was to reference.
You weren't an absolute beginner, and you weren't trying to learn how to draw from observation.
I
You did
was
not fit the mold.
I was an
or the-
absolute beginner when
demographic.
it came to inventing forms out of imagination. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that at best, my criticism is that it's imbalanced. And it has had such stature and it has become so culturally known that I've had times when I've told people that, what do you do for a living? I teach people how to draw. Oh, do you know about drawing on the right side of the brain? You know, that's
I
the
could see.
first thing I get.
That's annoying.
And so I say, yeah, it's great.
It's a wonderful book. That's funny. Yeah, I think as long as people understand that this is like one small step of learning how to draw, of learning how to be an artist, even, that then it's fine. This book won't. I don't think it'll give them any bad habits. At least not the new version. I don't think she says that perspective is a bad
No,
thing.
that got taken out.
If she said that still in the new version, I'd be like, yeah,
That is
don't
not in the
read
new
that.
version. Yeah, but I think it's because people really rallied around it. I've
Yeah.
been in college environments where conversations like this can go on for a long time,
Yeah.
and with varied people, and then someone comes into the room, and then another impassioned discussion begins. But it's, somebody said that the bigger you get, the bigger a target you are. And because that book is so popular, it's put up on a pedestal and it's easy to throw things at it.
Yeah. Well, I think that you should read at least the new chapter,
I will.
Drawing from Imagination. I actually didn't see that chapter in the book I have. Maybe I have.
Maybe it's not a chapter, maybe it's just a portion. I was looking up
Okay.
the table of contents.
One of the notes I took when I was reading through it is in the very beginning, the first exercise she has you do is draw from imagination.
Mhm.
Before teaching you anything, she's like, just do this, just so you can see how bad of an artist you are.
But I think we're going to go back to, this is my suspicion, we're going to go back to the polarity between using symbols
Yeah.
versus using what's in front of your face.
It's not just that. It's not just using symbols versus what's in front of your face. It's symbols versus reality. I think is the proper way of learning from this book. You can look at a portrait and you can draw 1,000 portraits by copying exactly what you see, and you will become much better at drawing portraits from imagination.
Okay.
Because you'll build that library.
That's right. It imprints on you.
Yeah. So what's wrong with learning from observation then?
I don't think there's anything wrong
Oh.
with it. It's just it's just that if that's all you can do, why not take a photograph of it? It's faster. You can trace the photograph. I'm coming at it very much from a practical point of view, which is I wanted to make a living as an artist. And I see all of these people that of the past and a few that were around me who could sit down, they could draw, they could put a scenario out, they can put an environment out, they can put characters in it, move them around there. How on earth are you doing that?
I don't know. I don't like that argument still though. If you have to do it from observation, why not take a photograph of it? I mean, you can use reference to make illustrations,
Mhm.
to tell a story.
Okay, then let me just put it to what I was having trouble with. If I had a photograph, I could copy it by eye exactly for my illustration, or do it faster by
Right.
projecting it onto there because I needed someone in that position. If I needed to lift my eye up or move around, I had no clue how anybody does that. And to
Okay.
me, that is a fundamental skill of a draftsperson.
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
But
go ahead.
like the painting I did of the chopping lesson, the dad teaching his son how to chop wood, that was done completely from reference.
Yeah.
I took all those photos and I took like 8 photos and I put them all together and I composed a narrative.
And you did it
But-
when?
Maybe like 5 years in.
Yeah, but so you knew enough about how form turns,
Yeah.
how light falls on form.
I guess we're in agreement. There is both sides of it, and they're both important, I think.
That is the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this.
Completely agree.
Here's what everybody's going to agree with, is that there's no one single discipline that's enough. Any discipline that you're going to master, there's going to be some counterpointing discipline to balance it out. And one of those is the ability to work fast and the ability to work slow. One of them is the ability to observe and the ability to invent.
And construct.
Yes, and they are interdependent on each other. We don't want to chop one of them out.
Right.
There's also many others. There's getting things correct versus getting them appealing. There's work that I love to do and work that sells. So there's many other different balances and polarities.
Yeah.
But I think that the best way to understand anything, when you're first trying to understand something, get the whole spectrum and see what the extremes are and see how they relate at the opposite ends of the spectrum. And then you say, I'm already good at this. Maybe I need to work this. Maybe this is my strength that I'm going to run with. This is the thing I'm going to cover for, or I'm going to team up with somebody else who's good at that. You don't have to be that great a runner if you can hit home runs every time. So when you've got this one strength, you can say, that's what I'm good at. Again, awareness of that spectrum is important in training.
Yeah. Cool.
Now,
Well, we agree. Nice.
what's your
All right.
thing, Stan?
What? Wait,
With
what
that-
do you? Wait, but we still have a voicemail.
We do. Okay, I'll wait.
You really
No,
don't want to be here with me?
yeah, I do. Want
trying to end the
I don't
episode?
want to hurt your feelings. Today was mean day for me.
Yeah. Well, last week was also.
Oh yeah, that's right. I've had a few weeks of mean days
Yeah.
with you.
I was
so-
mean last week too, though.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was pissed off at that comment.
Oh, that's right.
Millennial.
Yeah. You were, yeah. Well, we're trying to balance it out. This is going to be gentle and friendly day. That's great. Why don't we have a question?
Kumbaya. We're gonna hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Sure.
That's from your generation, right?
Yeah, it is. I do remember Kumbaya.
What?
This episode is sponsored by Proko Drawing Lessons. If you want to learn how to draw, if you want to improve your knowledge of figure drawing and figure anatomy, look no further than Proko.com. There are hundreds of free lessons on our YouTube channel, but the premium courses over at Proko.com/store have more detailed videos and a lot of assignment demonstrations. Our anatomy course also includes 3D models of all the bones and muscles that you can rotate around and study from right in your browser. It has PDF ebooks for each lesson, so you can review the information whenever you want to come back to it. And if you're looking to save some money, we have several discounted package deals. Head over to Proko.com and start learning.
Are we gonna do some kumbaya right now?
No, we're going to go to a voicemail. Let's go to the voicemail.
Hi, my name is Avery Hodge. I am a 17-year-old going to study studio art in college, and I gotta say, your podcast, I listen to them all the time while doing kind of mindless things like shading, kind of finishing up pieces. One thing I would like to ask you is, or how important is it for an artist to be able to give critiques to other artists? Is it something that has been super important for your growth, or not important at all, or have you noticed any patterns in students? I'd really like to know, because giving critiques is something that I am kind of uncomfortable doing, but I've heard that it's very good to do as a habit in order to improve your own art skills. So I'd love to hear from you all on this. See you later.
It's about the value of critiques in getting better at your own work.
Yeah. But before we move on, what did he say? Mindless acts like what?
Shading, I believe.
Like
It
shading?
sounded like it cut out.
Okay.
Shading and finishing up pieces.
Oh, okay. It's not mindless.
You want to
I
go
mean, it
first?
depends on how much he's shading. If he's shading like a whole piece of paper, like he's doing like a giant illustration and the whole background is dark, it's like okay. Shading is not mindless though. If he's talking about like form and stuff, right?
A lot of shading is mindless and shouldn't be.
Oh, Ah,
We've talked about that before.
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people approach it mindlessly, but it shouldn't. Yeah.
I've done maybe more than 1,000 hours of mindless shading. So I understand.
Marshall.
Yeah, but at least it's meditative. There is one thing good about mindless shading is that it puts you
Oh, yeah.
in a
Feels
state
good.
of relaxation, and you just feel good having made all that mindless shading.
Yeah. Okay, well, then to the question. I have an answer.
Go ahead.
Okay, giving critiques, I think, is very important because if you don't know how to analyze someone else's work, you might not be able to analyze your own work. Being able to deconstruct something and define all the issues with it and how it can be improved is really good for your own improvement. I mean, we talked about this several times already. Just teaching anything is one of the best ways to improve in that thing. One thing, though, is be careful. You were talking about critiquing as a habit. Don't critique people if they don't ask for it. You can critique it in your own head. Like, look at it and be like, okay, what do I think is wrong with this? You know, break it down on your own. But if you're a student in the class, don't just go around like critiquing everyone's work, unless you approach it in the right way. I did a lot of critiquing when I was a student, but I don't think I was disrespectful. I think I did it when people wanted it,
Good.
and then eventually people started asking for it,
That's why you're still
which is why I
alive.
became a teacher there at Watts.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons, yeah. But yeah, don't just like come around and start critiquing people. But yeah, no, teaching and being able to think through a drawing, deconstruct is very very good.
Yeah, Isaac Perlman, if that's how you pronounce it, he's one of the greatest violinists of the last 50-some years. And years ago, he was asked, why do you teach? He's this great violinist, but he's got students and he's helping with them. He said that when you remind students of these principles, you help them with their work, it reminds you to put it back on yourself and pay attention to that in your own work. So there is that giving out some feedback of how this could be better can be helpful, but there's a limit to it. I found this out as a teacher, but let me tell you about how a yoga teacher explained it to me. I was watching these yoga teachers that would teach 6-7 yoga sessions a day, and I was thinking, all day long you're going through the moves with the students and you're getting your exercise at work. And I mentioned it to one of them that you do yoga all day long, and this teacher said, I do not do yoga all day long. I teach students, and it is their practice. It is not my practice, and they are two completely different things. And I started to see, just because you're going through the moves does not mean that you're getting the benefit if they were your moves for you to pay attention to. Instead, your focus is on the students. And I find that with critique versus actually doing the work, they are two different muscles.
Absolutely, yeah.
One is extroverted, one is my own project, this one's about these people. And you can get so good at one, you can get so good at your craft in your studio alone that when you're asked about it, you hem and haw and have no words to put on it. And then you can be so articulate with it, but yet not able to do it.
But they are also connected.
Yes, they are.
They're
There's
separate, but
overlap.
they are totally
That's right.
connected because one can really, really help to improve the other. But they help each other grow.
Yeah. There's another thing about critique that's really important is that if you are in a community of people and everything anybody does, they compliment it, there's not going to be any growth in that. And I had another group of students who they'd rip each other's work apart, and it did a lot of damage among them. One of them had made so self-conscious that even to this day, this was 15, almost 20 years ago, and to this day, it still suffers from the fear of what can happen if my peers all descend on me like vultures. There is a sharing of language, a learning that this person has this bent, and I might be able to help them lean the other way or run more with that. There's something that's very valuable, I think, in having peers that are aware of how you do things or don't do things. And that way the discussion becomes efficient. We found this out with my peers from the junior college I went to when we shared studio space. is that we learned some terms from one of our teachers. One of them was dominant sequence. Dominant sequence is don't treat everything the same. Let one thing become more important and let there be a kind of crescendo to it. And so we'd look at each other's work and say, could use more dominant sequence, and we immediately knew what that was talking about. Little counterpoints. Another teacher said, it's nice to have a little triangle in the orchestra. You know, you got this big orchestra, you got this little ding. And so we'd look at each other's work, so, ooh, I like the way you use that little triangle in the orchestra. And those shorthands make us aware that someone's going to look at this, and I'll see if I can cover for it even before I show it to them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay.
Kumbaya.
How are we doing?
Good. I think I'm ready for your thing.
Okay, well, let's see. You want to go first? Do you know what
My
you're going to
thing?
do for yours?
I do. It's another pencil.
I'm surprised.
No,
What kind of pencil is that?
I'm so surprised that I've never tried these before.
Uh-huh.
This is a 5.6 millimeter graphite pencil.
Mm-hmm.
This is the very first time I'm trying it.
Yeah. Tell me what you think of it.
I love it. It's so close to the charcoal pencil, which is the exact same thickness.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, I think it's a little. This is actually a little bit thicker, but it doesn't matter. I can get this to that bullet shape that I get my charcoal pencils in. I sharpen it the same way. I expose an inch.
Yeah.
I'll hold it like this, and I draw in the same way. And I mean, usually I had this very different approach to graphite and charcoal. I would be very tonal with my charcoal, use the side, get that thin to thick line, very dynamic line quality. And then with graphite, I would be very linear. I would just use the tip all the time because that's kind of what it wants you to do.
But you were
right?
using a wooden pencil that comes to a point, not a mechanical graphite pencil?
Both. I use both.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's so thin, you usually kind of just use the point. And people, you can't sharpen a normal graphite pencil to be an inch long. It'll break instantly. This thing is strong. You can put it on the side, and you can shade. You can get that thin to thick line.
Yes.
Instead of holding that pencil like this, I'm now holding my graphite pencils overhand.
Yeah. Great.
I love it. It connects the two together for me. The only complaint, this one is too heavy. It's made out of metal, and after like 10 minutes, I started to feel that I was straining my wrist.
Okay.
And you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
You need to be totally relaxed. That's how you start, getting injuries. So I'm going to try to see if I can get like a plastic one or something.
The ones I have a few of them, so I've got them in different grades of 4B and 2B and all that.
Yeah, these come in boxes.
Yeah.
I got from HB all the way to 8B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, mine are all metal also.
Well, the insides come out and they're refillable.
Right. But the holder is
But
metal.
your holders,
so it's
they're all
heavy.
metal? They're all heavy?
Yeah, but I didn't mind that because the reason I used them in the first place was to do gesture drawing where, since graphite is slick, it will slide on the page. And so I like that because I'm just going to ski around on this page with these lines. But I never used them to do anything that was worth looking at. It was always just exercises to get past the careful little lines, make them slide all around.
You could be very precise with this, just like
I
you can
know.
with a charcoal pencil.
Yeah.
If you sharpen it like a bullet, where the tip is really sharp, you can do both.
Yep.
So it's not
Okay.
it's not just for sloppy drawings.
Yeah, that's why I
Gestures.
used it.
Oh. I love it. What's your thing?
Okay, I don't have the book here with me, but it's called Writing the Natural Way by Gabrielle Lucer Rico. And I have not read it in 20 years, but I read it in the 90s so carefully that I got everything out of it I could get out of it. It had a tremendous influence on me. I was thinking of writing a creativity book, and I thought I could never come up with one that's more practical than what she put in that book. She uses a technique called clustering. This is now writing. She mainly emphasizes poetry writing, but this relates to curriculum writing, story writing, any kind of creative generation. You got ideas in your head, you're going to get them out, you're going to get them into form. And the attitude that she has in taking the person who is creative and saying, let me give you the tools of clustering, and you will use these for the rest of your life. They are that good. But let me give a very short summation of what you do. You throw out words, ideas, You put little balloons around them, and then you see how they interconnect. So it's like a flat graphic design of the chaos that goes on in the mind. And then in revising this, you seek two things. One is similarities. This one groups with this one, and then the other is contrast, or sets of opposites. This is the opposite of this one. And with this technique, you are able to take all of that brainstorming chaos, that divergent thinking, get it out there, and then rearrange it so it starts to converge into elegant patterns.
You
And
talking about flowcharts?
no, flowcharts are related to it, but the
How are
way
they different?
she talks about them as webs.
Right.
That you're putting words down and then seeing how they relate. And here's one of the most interesting things about it. I don't know whether this has been studied scientifically, but I believe in it, that when you start to turn this into something worthwhile, it starts to look nice. You start to have little clusters over here and little clusters over here, and they kind of balance each other out, and then you've got some dominant core, a nucleus that they're related to. And as you continue to revise through clustering, I would go so far as to say this, and so I'm choosing this as my thing. The reason why I'm choosing it is because we've talked with Ty about divergent and convergent thinking, and I criticized drawing on the right side of the brain as being imbalanced at best. I think that Gabriel Rico in this book put together one of the best practical techniques for honoring the great diversity of the creative process, which is to start with chaos, find patterns in it, arrange those patterns so that they relate graphically with these balloons, and then you can get some really great. I started using it in the 90s, and when I did, I know that my teaching got better. Because when I prepare lectures, I would start that way, and it started to get me to think always.
You have a lecture on YouTube, right? Where you plan your career?
It's
Is that what it is?
Design your career
Design
with a
your-
whiteboard.
Is that what is that technique that you use in that what you're talking about?
That is one of maybe a half dozen metaphors that I present for if you're going to design your career. I mean,
But the technique you use in that video.
one of them is clustering.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. Really?
Yes, but the other ones are your career as a map, your career as a left to right map, your career as a petri dish, where you're taking different elements and seeing how they interact. You're looking at, if you're going to be a professional artist, you want to get this stuff onto a surface that's in front of your face and see how things interrelate. So it is very related to, that's one of the places that I mention how valuable that book is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
As
Cool.
one technique for how you can.
This video of yours is on YouTube for free?
It is on, the first 18 minutes are on YouTube for free.
Where's the rest of it?
The other part, you have to pay $4 for it.
Where is it?
It's on martialart.com.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
How long is the whole thing?
1 hour.
Oh, okay.
But in 1 hour, it was the best I could do to consolidate down how, if you are just out of your training and you say, how do I now make a career happen? Or better yet, before you begin your training, because one of the uses of the whiteboard is to design your training for your career. Here's where I want to go, here's what I need to get there, and you can look at it and say, I'm going to give from this stepping stone to this stepping stone and so on. So anyway, that's an extended commercial for my $4 lecture on design your career with a whiteboard. People have told me, people come up to me at trade shows and told me how much it meant right when we came out with it. One woman and her husband came up to me and glowingly told me, this is a game changer for me. And it's very old practical stuff, which is when you're dealing with a problem, get it in front of you on paper so you can see how things relate left to right, top to bottom, and how one thing is on top of another or separated from it. You're looking for similarities and differences.
Wow, you're like teaching perspective on your life.
Yeah. You are wise. Somebody told me that at Wise Proco is going to be a new thing.
Wise Proco?
Yeah, Wise Proco. Didn't you see that in the comments on one of these things recently? That
No.
hashtag Wise Proco.
Oh,
well, you're in
man.
for a treat, Stan.
Oh. Is this like Smart Hulk? It's like
I'm
Best of
not
Both
sure.
Worlds.
What is Smart Hulk?
You haven't seen Endgame?
No.
Oh yeah, you don't watch new stuff.
I'm out of
You're
touch.
only history. You don't like
Yeah.
living people, artists who are alive.
I like looking back at history.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are young. You look forward to the next thing. This is why we make such an amazing,
I like also being in the present.
balanced pair. So,
Smart Hulk is where he figures out how to be Hulk and also be smart and totally in control of himself.
so it's like it's that balance thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
but it's
Oh, this
hilarious. I thought it was so funny.
Okay,
It's like
Well, I
one
look
of my
forward
favorite
to
parts
it.
of the movie is just like his character because
It's a movie.
I don't get it. Whatever. See you guys later. Leave 5 stars
All right.
on iTunes and tell all your friends about our podcast.
Yeah.
Comment what you think Marshall is missing about the right side of the movie.
Oh yeah. I would
Oh,
like
you like
that.
that?
I would like that. You are the one who told me you should read the comments because this
Yeah.
is our audience. So
Yeah.
I do read them, but there's a lot of them. I read the first sentence and I jump right over it. But then there's some of them I read them and I copy and paste them because some people give us thoughtful comments.
Yeah.
And the agenda is not to show how smart I am, it's to contribute to this community. And so that's why I like those in there, and I keep their names on them. So if I'm going to quote them in a classroom, I'm going to quote them by name. So I would like to know, what is it that I'm missing from drawing on the right side of the brain? I went on and on about my opinion. I'd like to know, what is it that would help others and help me? Give us balance this podcast out.
Yeah. Or why you agree with Marshall.
No, you don't need to do that. Yeah. Oh, well, whatever.
Do it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Bye. 5 stars. See ya.
Bye.